Whether it's stomping a Goomba, killing some demons in Doom, ripping apart bosses in Hyper Light Drifter, or just playing a game with a giant boss that scares the living hell out of you, there are enemies everywhere. So, why are enemies so important anyways? Enemies are what drive player engagement. They're what give the player a sense of world building, a feeling inside of the world that's impossible to get without anything else. Do keep in mind though, there are games without many enemies. A prime example would be Inside. One of the biggest things with enemies is having reaction and action. Imagine you're playing Mario and you hit a Goomba and it doesn't just pop nicely. It would feel really stale and not fun to play. Or imagine playing Doom and you go to tear apart a demon and he just disappears off of your screen when he dies. It would kind of suck to play, and it probably wouldn't be as popular as it is now. Now, there are plenty of games that have terrible enemies. A prime example would be Dark Souls 1 with the Bed of Chaos. This boss is completely infamous for being absolutely the worst boss in the entire series, even though the entire series is probably one of the best ever created. That enemy in particular is very difficult because it's pretty much not even a boss fight. You'll walk into the arena and you have to walk to either side of the boss to attack it. It technically only takes 3 swings to kill the boss. However, you're getting attacked from the top while the ground is crumbling beneath you, so it's impossible to actually dodge anything. And if you are to roll out of this specific area, you're going to fall through the floor anyways. What makes this boss even worse is the fact that if you get hit by it, it knocks you over and you have to wait to get back up. It feels really sluggish, it's not fun to play, and it's probably my least favorite boss in the entire series. Another clear thing that makes this boss feel terrible is that it breaks the flow that you've had previously. It completely disregards every rule that Dark Souls has taught you up until this point, which just feels really bad to play and is not fun. However, an incredible enemy that is probably one of the best in the entire series is Doom Eternal's Cacodemon. Your first instinct when looking at any enemy in that game is to just shoot it. But Doom Eternal does it a different way. The way you have to kill that enemy is you have to shoot a grenade with your shotgun into its mouth and wait for it to stagger. This gives immediate game feeling, and it feels incredible. And once you do stagger it, you get to make a glory kill, which is just a really satisfying, fun way to kill something. And after you do it, it drops a bunch of health so that you can continue fighting. The enemy is actually reacting to what you're doing, and it's giving you an action to follow with. Hyper Light Drifter is another example of amazing game feeling with enemies. If you've ever played that game, you would know when you're fighting a big group of enemies, specifically the goblins, if you kill all the goblins except 1 or 2 of them, their friends will start to panic, which gives a feeling of aliveness in the world. It's a reaction to what the player's doing. Another thing that happens in that game is something that you probably didn't even notice, but your brain definitely did, and it's called hit stops. Hit stopping is whenever you or an enemy get hit and the game temporarily freezes. It gives you a feeling of weight behind your attacks. It feels really good, and not a lot of games have it, but the games that do have it are very popular for a reason. A lot of games that have this is Hollow Knight, Dead Cells, Hyper Light Drifter, and plenty of other games that you might be aware of. Great enemies make combat feel alive. They're what makes the game the game. It's what makes you keep coming back. You can have incredible movement, but if you don't have good enemies, there's no point in playing it. A good example would be Celeste. The enemy in Celeste is the map itself. It's reactive. It is reacting to the player as you're going through it. So you can be creative with your enemies. It doesn't have to be, well, it's just a Goomba, or it's just a demon. It could be anything. It just has to be reactive, clear, and fun to play. So for my game, I have a couple enemy ideas that I want to implement into the game. I'm fresh into learning game development. I just started learning Unity about a month ago, and I've been learning how to make enemy AI systems. The first enemy I want to make is just a basic goblin. I want to start somewhere simple to where I don't overwhelm myself and I actually get something done. I want a simple enemy AI system. I want him to be able to patrol where he thinks you might be, or if he hasn't seen you previously, he will just patrol in where he is. I don't want him to fall off ledges, I want him to interact with walls, I just want to give a feeling of aliveness in my characters. Obviously, I would want him to run after the player if he sees you. This can be done in a couple easy ways. If you're interested, watch the end of the video, I'll teach you how to do that there. I want to add feedback by adding knockback to the sword swing of the goblin. This will give immediate feedback to the player and it feels great. Another thing I would love to add is a hit stop. One way I want to add feedback to the game in reaction is I want to add headshots. I want to have critical points that you can hit on the enemies. So if you headshot an enemy, they might die in 1 or 2 hits, and it actually gives a different animation, which would feel better to the player. The next out of the 3 enemies that I want to do is a flying enemy that drops bombs on the player from the sky. One way that I want to add reaction is I want you to be able to shoot the bomb mid-air and blow up the enemy. This would play a unique interaction, and it feels really good to the player. It keeps them coming back. It never feels stale because there's different ways you can kill the enemies. Of course, you could just shoot them, but why would you when you could blow up the bombs or shoot them in the head? Not only does this give really good feedback, it puts players on their feet. It makes them think about, well, they can't stay on the ground too long or they might get blown up, or they can't just focus on one enemy at a time. It gives diversity. The last enemy I would like to add is a brute. I want this brute to be slow, powerful, dealing a lot of damage. He doesn't take too much damage from you, and overall just pretty scary to play against. The way I want this brute enemy to attack is I would love for it to slam the ground and it causes spikes to come out from the ground in like a wave form. This would cause the player to not be able to stay on the ground and have to go into the air and actually use the mechanics I've implemented. The way I would love the player to be able to kill this enemy is it's impossible to shoot the enemy from the front. So you would have to wait for him to slam, shoot his back, and then kill him that way. This is kind of similar how Doom does it in a couple of their games with Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, and the new Doom Dark Ages that just released earlier this year. There's other games that implement a simple thing like this too. Horizon Forbidden West and Horizon Zero Dawn both implement kind of similar systems to this, but they're not exactly like this. I want to almost disguise this game as a fighting game with rhythm to it. A lot of incredible games do this, like Dark Souls, Hollow Knight, and Hyper Light Drifter. They feel like fighting games, but in reality, they're actually rhythm games. Each challenge is different to the player. Each level will feel different because different enemies react differently to their environment. This is a prime example of reactivity. So how exactly am I going to make these enemies after all? I'm fresh into game development, so I have to learn basically everything there is to learn. So far, the hardest thing for me personally has been learning the AI systems. Making an enemy feel smart and reactive is actually adding systems, enemy state machines, and other things that actually make it feel smart. And this is where enemy state machines come in. You can also use state machines for the player, but primarily they're used for the enemies. What is a state machine? A state machine acts as the enemy's brain. It constantly asks, what should I be doing right now? Should I be chasing? Should I be patrolling? Should I be attacking? Well, it will check the code and see what it should be doing based off of its environment. And not only that, it'll change depending on what it did last, making it feel more alive and feel more reactive. Really complex enemies can have huge trees that are state machines, but mine are going to be pretty simple with only about 4 states. Pretty much every modern game you've ever played definitely has state machines in it, no matter what it is. The only game I could probably think of that doesn't have a state machine would be like an original Mario game. But even things as far back as the SNES, A Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, have state machines in the enemies. So how has my experience been actually making these enemies? So far, the hardest part has actually been the coding, even though I took a coding class back in high school. The easiest part for me though was the vision. It's pretty simple and it just uses raycast. Basically, it takes the player's head or the enemy's head and it'll put a raycast at the position of what it's trying to look at. You'll use a layer mask to tell the raycast what to interact with and what not to interact with. And then you want to set a certain distance to the raycast so that it doesn't go too far and it's not too short. So in the end, if it touches the player, it'll send back a bool that says true or false, I can see the player. It's pretty simple. An easy way to actually make this feel even better though is to use about 3 to 5 raycasts. You want to make a cone shape for the enemy's vision so that it doesn't just feel linear and not really that smart. The state machine itself was genuinely one of the hardest things I've ever coded. I'm still improving on the design, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. The players interacting with the enemies actually feels really good. I need to do some work still, but they seem pretty smart enough. The way you want to make a state machine, so you want to use an enumerator to actually make the state machine. That's how it's going to feel alive and actually pick what it wants to do. This is basically creating a almost variable that you're creating. Basically creates a variable with a certain amount of parameters. Somewhat how like booleans are true or false, the enumerator you create will only have those states that you'll create. Mine has patrolling, idling, attacking, and chasing. The way you want to switch between the enemy states is you want to use a switch. This basically is an if-else statement that's really simplified, and it looks way nicer, it functions nicer, and it sets the parameters to what they need to be. Here's the code that I used. It basically runs down the list, asks if this thing is true. If it's true, it'll run this code. If it is true, it'll break the switch and it'll just do that thing. If not true, it'll go to the next one and ask if that's true. And then when it is true, you want to have a function that actually plays so that it can actually do the thing that you want it to do. All I did was make true or false for each animation. Either they are idling or they are chasing. There's no in between. This is probably not the most efficient way to do these things, but that's how I thought to do it, and that's how I'm going to do it until I learn a better way. For the attacking, I've not implemented it yet, but what I want to do is add a small raycast that can only go so far, and if the raycast actually interacts with the player, it'll take damage on the player. And then it'll shoot the player back just a little bit to give a feeling of weight. After that, I want to add a screen shake and a little bit of a particle effect. This will give immediate feeling, this will give feedback, and it gives a feeling of aliveness in the world. Overall, each enemy should give a feeling of interactiveness, reactiveness, and a feeling of challenge. So far, this project is taking a lot more time than I expected it to. I'm probably going to extend my time to 2 months because scope creep is kind of getting to me a little bit. Sorry if my setup looks like absolute dog shit today. I have to use this little light over here, which is just an LED that I have set up on a TV stand. And then outside, it looks more gloomy than Bloodborne, so it's just really hard to get a good lighting system. I've had to switch what I'm actually doing my work on. I changed my desktop to Linux because I hate Windows, and my laptop just got broken recently, which really complicates everything. Another thing that happened is my microphone actually broke. I'm using a new microphone, and the old microphone actually fell on my laptop and broke it. For the next goal I would like to get the flying enemy done. I think the brute will take a little bit longer than I'm expecting it to take, so I'm going to give myself a little bit more time for that. The flying enemy I don't think will be too difficult to do. So far the learning curve has been really steep, but it's been really rewarding too. So I'm pretty happy about that. And with that, that's basically the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you could subscribe, like, comment, say what you think about this video. Tell me what you think I should do next, maybe what I should add in the game, and I'll see you guys next time.